Good morning. My name is Chris Adlam with Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm delighted to be joined by Rick Emberson, the HR Director from Bacton Transport. Hello, Rick.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for giving up your time today. And I guess my sort of start of a 10 questions to be, please can you tell me about Bacton Transport and what you do?
Right. Well, Bacton Transport are a general haulage company based in Woolpit, just outside Stowmarket, and we provide pallet distribution and transport services in and around East Anglia and further afield nationally as well.
And I'm assuming, I guess it's a challenging time of year for you now then with the sort of weather conditions, everything we're going through at the moment, or what kind of impact does sort of seasonal sort of weather have on you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So seasonality is a big part of the role here, as you can imagine. So we provide transport distribution services for everything from supermarkets to nurseries and everything in between. To be fair, so it really can be a fairly challenging time as supermarkets are ramping up, getting closer to Christmas. The demands for our services, as you can imagine, is fairly full on. So yeah, it is a challenging time, but what it does do, it allows us to keep busy right up until the Christmas period, and a couple of days off over Christmas, and then we're back to it again in between Christmas and New Year. So there's plenty going on.
And with plenty going on, I'm assuming that obviously you've got different people and different roles to support all of this. So can you sort of just give me a sort of rough breakdown of, who you have within the organization and sort of the roles they do? I know you probably have lots of different roles, but sort of from as you say, from getting the request from customers to getting, the vehicles to their door, what kind of process is that?
It's more complicated than you would imagine, to be fair. And you're right to point out that we do have every role. So I think most people would assume that a transport and general haulage business would mostly have drivers, and that obviously is clearly the case. We have warehouse operatives, again, because without the warehouse guys loading the vehicles, then the vehicles don't actually get out on the road. But to take your question, from the point that the customer emails in a request, that hits the customer services team. The customer services team will then pass that request on to the operational team. The operational team will then allocate that load to the vehicle, and then operational team will then plan that load out on the driver, will then communicate that with the driver and the warehouse guys. The warehouse guys then load the vehicle, and then the driver delivers it. That's a very, very compressed version of events, as you can imagine. There's quite a lot that goes on behind the scenes. But that's the purely kind of operational bit. But in the background to that, as well as the customer services team, we have the IT support team, we have the finance team, we have the accounts team. You have the softer skills, the HR side of the business, which obviously is important as well. So yeah, that there is a variety, a plethora of jobs that go into supporting the business. So it's not just what we call the guys on the coal face. Without the huge support team in the background, then none of that would work.
No, that's a really concise sort of breakdown of it. And as I say, I know that I knew as soon as I asked that question, it was never going to be as simple as how does something get from A to B. I know it's obviously is a lot that happens between those points. But I say you've touched on some of the roles there, and some of those roles are obviously going to require different skills, different traits. So could you maybe sort of just pluck a couple, and maybe so whether it's telling me how someone, as I say, in your IT department differs from someone in working in the warehouse, or can you tell me roughly the kind of different skills they may have that allow them to sort of work in their role?
Yeah, and it is really interesting because we do have a variety of roles that require a variety of different skill sets. So not every role within Bacton Transport is purely academic, for example. We have very much vocational roles, so people who didn't necessarily do quite so well or wasn't fantastic at English and maths at school. But we've got some real superstars in the warehouse, guys that have joined us either on apprenticeships or through the Kickstart scheme, which we supported. So we've got some young people that have joined us. They just a lot of the opportunities that we have here at Bacton Transport aren't necessarily about the experiences that you've had. It's about the attitude that you turn up with. We have people here who have come to us from the hospitality sector, and they are now planning and routing the drivers. We've had young people who have come to us on apprenticeships. So we've currently got 2 apprenticeships at the moment, one in our customer services team, and all the only skills that they really need is a willingness to learn, the ability to be able to communicate, obviously talking to customers on the phone, so not being scared of picking up the phone or answering the phone, being able to coordinate their time, answer emails. And we've also got an apprenticeship at the moment in our accounts department, so need to be a little bit more academic, be very comfortable with numbers and spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. But we really do have roles in a variety of places, and really interestingly, for me as the HR director, seeing young people coming into the business is one of the biggest joys that I have. I'm an old and crusty by comparison to a lot of the people that we have in our business now. But yeah, if I look out through my office window to the customer services team, they're a 6-person team, 4 of which are under 22. So it really does go to show that and that's the way we try and bring people into the business, by giving the opportunity to the customer services team. But then what normally transpires is that they display other skill sets in terms of being a little bit more capable of able to spin a number of plates or keep balls in the air at the same time. And it's being able to do that kind of, have that skill, which is what we need on our operational side of the business, because that's what you need to be able to do. Logistics is all about planning. And if you can plan well ahead, but then be adaptable and agile enough to be able to cope with changing situations, that has a massive impact. And we do find that young people with young brains tend to be much better at that than older people.
That's brilliant. You've actually sort of led into my next question really nicely, and you sort of touched a lot on it already, as you say, about the sort of young cohort you've got working with you. And so if we were sort of if we look at, say, the 2 apprentices you took on, if we sort of go back to like their application process, you've spoken a lot there about sort of the traits they're displaying, in role, which make it, them valuable assets to the team. But if we go back to when you were sort of looking at their CVs and those kind of things, what kind of things did you see before even meeting them that you sort of, whether it was in their hobbies, the way they describe themselves? I know you've spoken about the experience and transferable skills within the organisation, but like, what kind of things were you seeing that made you think, actually, like, okay, this person would be potentially be a good fit for our team?
And I think and you're right. It's interesting to point that out, because when you have a CV from a young person, they don't always have lots of skills in the workplace. But as you'd imagine, there was someone who's 17, 18, and other than sort of doing some volunteering work, you don't tend to get that. But I think that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. So people that have bothered to get off their backside and go and do something. So people who have volunteered, people who have had paper rounds, people that have worked in shops, people who have done some till checkout at Asda or Tesco's. But people who have just done a little bit more than sit on the backside and play PlayStation games. It's people who have got an interest in outdoor activities, people that people that have got a little bit about them, and it doesn't have to be that they're supermen. It doesn't have to be that they're super intelligent. It's people that have got a passion or an interest in something that makes you think, you know what, that's the kind of person that we want to come and work for us in Bacton Transport. So yeah, but very much it's about what makes your CV stand out from someone else's CV. What have you done differently? People who do the Duke of Edinburgh Awards and those kind of things. All those things make you think, do you know what, that's someone that we should have a conversation with, because the trick to a CV is making it interesting enough that it will make me as the HR director think, do you know what, I want to see that person, because once you see that person, that's then their opportunity to sell themselves to the business and explain why they think that they should be given the opportunity.
That's brilliant, and that's a really sort of interesting look into, as you say, from the HR director's point of view. As I say, the kind of things you're looking for. So no, that's really interesting. And actually, as the HR director, you're probably even better suited than most people are to answer this question, in terms of when I'm having these employer talks, we like to paint the idea. So I paint a picture for people about what is actually involved in the role. But you might see, say, the job advert to work in your customer service team. But as you say, there's sort of the sort of nitty gritty day roles, obviously that that's a sort of different aspect altogether. So I know there's no such thing as a typical day. I will acknowledge that right away. But if you had to take, say, the members of your customer service team, let's take them as an example, and if you had to tell me about sort of what the kind of challenges they face are on a typical day, and what the sort of rewards they receive on a sort of typical day, whether it's just in what they're doing or as organizational incentives or those kind of things, whatever, what are their rewards and what are the challenges they face?
I think that, and as you rightly point out, the challenges are different every day, and I think that's what makes certainly the role of the customer services team such an interesting one, because you never know what you're going to get. So you walk in thinking that your day is going to be a certain way, and you log onto your screen and you open your emails, and it will be everything from a special request to get a particular pallet to an awkward destination. So something on an outlying island of Orkney or somewhere like that, from a customer complaint to say that something hasn't arrived on time, or a customer who's taken the time to email in to thank you for a particularly good service that a driver has done, and it's everything in between. So it really is a whole plethora of potential requests for information, after arrival times of pallets. So after an ETA, collecting a proof of delivery from the driver who's maybe delivered something to somebody and it hasn't arrived at the final destination, to try to follow up where that is. And I think in terms of rewards, the satisfaction of knowing that throughout the course of the day, especially with the customer services team, they deal with so many different requests, so many different emails and phone calls. And at the end of the day, going home knowing that they've made a real difference, because they are absolutely the front line of who our customers speak to. I say many times to the customer service team and the drivers that actually these guys are the people who truly represent Bacton Transport. And I sit in the background, the directors sit in the background, and it really is the drivers who are on the front line. So these are the guys that go out, with the Bacton Transport polo shirts on, and represent the business. They're the guys that kind of speak to the customers on a face-to-face basis. But when something has gone wrong, or something hasn't gone quite right, or there's a special request, then it's the customer services team who will either take the phone call or take the email, and they're the guys that really are the face of Bacton Transport. And we've worked long and hard with our customer services team to explain the importance of always offering an option. Because when people phone up, sometimes they've got a request, I need something today, can I have it right now? And that's not always possible. So the fact that the customer services team have to be able to think on their feet, offer an option, say, well, unfortunately we can't do this for you today, but we can offer you this tomorrow. I think our mantra is never say no, always offer an option.
I think that's a really good match to have. I mean, not just in your industry, but in any industry. So I would definitely be taking note of that and stealing that for for another day.
You're welcome.
My final question, really, Rick, and I'll give it to you in two parts. Is firstly, can you just tell me a bit about your career journey and how you've come to be where you are? And the second part of the question will be, based on the career journey you've had, you say the mistakes you've made, the lessons you've learned, and those kind of things. If you could go back and speak to, let's say 17, 18-year-old Rick, about to go out sort of on your career journey, based on the sort of experiences you've had, what's the one piece of career advice you would give to your younger self?
My career journey is probably a little bit unusual for the majority of people. So I joined the military, joined the army when I was 16. And did a full career. So went from private soldier right the way through to captain. So did 27 years in total. So yeah, and that was a wonderful experience, and certainly set me up with skills in man management and leadership, and planning and logistics, which then allowed me at the end of my military career to come into Civvy Street and start the role. So I was very operational when I first joined Bacton Transport. But as I've got older and slightly less energetic, I've taken a more of a support role, and that's how I've ended up as the HR director here. Because I think having people skills is hugely important. and understanding the value of the people to the business is why I've ended up in the role that I'm at. But in terms of the advice that I would give myself, is just take every opportunity. Don't be afraid. If someone says, do you fancy having a go at whatever it may be, just say yes, because you'll figure it out. There are too many people who hold back and turn down opportunities because they're scared of the unknown. And some of the greatest opportunities, and the one example I'll give you, which isn't necessarily not appropriate, isn't necessarily relevant to Bacton Transport, but when I was in the military, I was given the opportunity to become a ski instructor. Now, at the time, I could not ski for toffee. And I was thinking, this is the most ridiculous thing. But I said yes anyway. And then I was then taught to ski. I then became a military ski instructor. I wasn't particularly brilliant myself, but I became a military ski instructor. And every January, February, March for about 4 or 5 years, I had the opportunity to go to Norway and teach other military people how to ski.
Oh, wow.
It is just phenomenal. So, not everyone's going to have that opportunity, but when you're in a work environment and someone says, do you fancy having a go at, just say yes. Take the opportunity, because you never know where it could lead you.